The strange phenomena associated with the Underground Railroads of the slavery era in the US reflect tales of desperation, betrayal and terror. Runaway former enslaved people travelling through a network of secret safehouses sometimes perish during their hopeful bid for a life of freedom. The spirits of these traumatised souls often inhabit the locations where their journey came to a tragic end. The risks for slave liberators meant the locations of many stations remained unknown to posterity, while some were uncovered during renovations or recalled by local families. It is unsurprising that with their history of cruelty and profound emotion, many Underground Railroad locations are haunting hotspots. Here are some of them. Prospect Place. Also known as Runaway Mansion, Prospect Place in Ohio is haunted by those held by its former owner, George W. Adams. He used his 2 flour mills as safe houses for enslaved people escaping the South, and also smuggled people out on flatboats during his business trips to New Orleans. A cupola atop the house displayed a bright light indicating the safe house to travelling slaves who could rest and eat before continuing their journey north to Canada. Although Ohio was a free state, bounty hunters could still legally raid the property seeking formerly enslaved people. The angry spirit of one such raider still haunts the barn where Adams' farmhands hanged him. His ghost sometimes lashes out at visitors. The mansion was a key location on the Underground Railroad which was linked with the basement of the mansion. Many of those seeking sanctuary had been injured by the marauding slave catchers or wild animals and succumbed prior to their journey, leaving their sad spirits on site to haunt the place. The spectral cast at Prospect Place also includes a sick little girl who fatally fell from an upstairs bedroom window. As it was winter and the ground was frozen solid, a body was laid in the basement until her spring burial. The child is heard wandering through the house and often crying in the basement. The girl's mother had sat by her there until she herself developed pneumonia and also passed. Her spirit has been witnessed in her small daughter's bedroom or the basement. A slave who also passed in the house is often seen to stand protectively by the little girl's body in the basement. Another spirit, Anna Adams Cox, is said to be an abandoned wife and searches the estate for a missing husband, George, who is also roaming the house. Hanna House. Indiana State Legislator Arthur Hanna established this 24-hour mansion in Indianapolis in the mid-1800s. The Hanna House haunting started after formerly enslaved people hiding in the basement overturned an oil lamp. Tragically, several became trapped by the flames and perished. Some witnesses have seen apparitions of slaves and heard moaning and whispering in the cellars and wailing throughout the house. The mansion earned the reputation of reeking of death because sometimes one of the bedrooms has an odour of rotting flesh, but the next day smells like roses. It's thought that the burned remains were hidden in the attic until they could be buried. Doors swing open or shut for no reason and unexplained cold drafts blow, while the spectre of whom many believe to be Hanna himself has been seen on the property. Woodburn Mansion. The Delaware Governor's Mansion, Woodburn in Dover, Delaware, also served as a covert station for runaway slaves. A tunnel went from the basement to the St. Johns River, providing a secret passage to the safe house. A thriving community of ghosts seem to have occupied the mansion since it was built in 1790. One of the best known was a slave raider who was in a group storming the house but then fled when the owner, Quaker Dan Cowgill, chased them away. He climbed the large poplar tree in the front yard but slipped, unnoticed, and was caught in a knot in the tree, where he hung until expiring. His screams and scuffling can still be heard to this day. Nearly every resident of Woodburn Mansion has reported hearing or seeing one of its many ghosts. Governors' wives have regularly heard pattering footsteps in the dining room throughout the night, while Revolutionary-era gentlemen float across the room. One is often seen helping himself to wine. A previous owner of Woodburn claimed that he would replenish his wine decanter every night and find it empty the following morning. The wine-drinking apparitions are usually wearing Revolutionary-era clothes. A young girl is often spotted in the garden, dressed in a red checkered gingham frock. She seems to enjoy splashing and playing in the pools and fountains, and was seen even crashing the inauguration of Governor Michael Castle in 1985. Guests at the ceremony felt something tugging at them throughout the proceedings, and then they witnessed a young girl hovering slyly in one corner of the reception hall. Other presences have included an elderly man dressed in a colonial period-style outfit, complete with powdered wig, and a small girl with a candle. Regular occurrences are running shadows and an echo of chains rattling in the basement. Hanson Home. In the time of slavery, the location of Alton, Illinois, on the border between North and South, served well in providing opportunities for freedom bids. Abolitionists used churches and other buildings in Alton and nearby towns to funnel slaves towards safer areas as early as the 1820s. Many slaves sent to the major slave port of St. Louis to be sold to planters were able to use Alton as an escape route, and it is now regarded as one of the most haunted places in the country. When his home was built in 1857, Nathaniel Hanson ordered underground tunnels and rooms to be carved from the bedrock of limestone. The basement of the four-storey building, which later became the Enos Sanitarium and is now apartments, provided escape routes which were part of the Underground Railroad. A tunnel formed in the basement was a coal shed where escaped slaves could hide. The Hanson Home is now known for a range of paranormal activities. Many slaves perished trying to get across the Mississippi River, while others succumbed to disease, starvation, and injuries. Modern folk sense that their restless spirits still haunt the building and tunnels. Paranormal tours of the tunnels have reported several people feeling as if someone were holding their hand, only to discover that no living person is present. One visitor even felt someone place their hands on her shoulders, and when she realised no one was there, she turned and saw an ominous figure standing in front of her. Enos apartment residents have reported hearing cutlery drawers rattle and leaving full glasses in the kitchen that they then find eerily empty. It's been said that the residents of the apartments never seem to stay very long. Many have reported hearing footsteps and loud noises coming from the floors above them, only to discover nobody was up there. Objects go missing in the apartments, only to reappear later. Hickory Hill. With the reputation of the state's most haunted place, Hickory Hill in Harrisburg, Illinois, has been an underground railway station and was dubbed the Old Slave House. However, this station was unlike the others. The owner, John Hart Crenshaw, ran it as a reverse underground station. Instead of assisting slaves to freedom, he lured them to his house and then sold them back into servitude. This ruthless operator also kidnapped free black people in Illinois and sold them in the slave states. Stories have emerged of Crenshaw's targets, who included large groups of men and lone mothers with several children. His slave catchers brought escaped slaves to Crenshaw, who sold on to the unsuspecting escapees or forced them to work in his salt mines. The hard labour required in these mines was so gruelling that no free men could be persuaded to do it. He imprisoned them in the third-floor attic, where 12 cells with bars and a whipping post were later discovered. He had also constructed an underground tunnel running from the basement of his house to the river so that people could be transported in and out undetected. At the back of his house was a larger entryway to the basement where whole wagons could be driven inside to be loaded and unloaded out of sight. A carriage door opened directly into the house so the slaves could be forced up a secret passage and straight into the attic. Due to the brutality of their treatment at Hickory Hill, many of the trafficked individuals passed there. The spiritual residue of captives' fear and anger at their betrayal has understandably created persistent reports of the ghostly sounds and phenomena experienced there. The most haunted area is the narrow hallway of the slave quarters. When the house became a tourist attraction in 1913, its visitors reported moans, wailing, and the rattling of chains in the attic. Other phenomena experienced were unexplained cold drafts, icy hands touching a visitor's face or arm, and the feeling of entities brushing against them. Legends told how no one could ever spend a night in the attic of the house. particularly after an attempted paranormal investigation in the 1920s. A self-described exorcist from Benton, Illinois called Hickman Whittington documented his visit to the house for a local newspaper. He'd been in perfect health when visiting the old mansion, but sickened on the same night and passed just hours later. Over the years, no one has dared to stay in the former slave quarters overnight. In the late 1960s, 2 Vietnam vets ran screaming from the house, claiming to have been surrounded by ghostly figures. Even the owner's wife refused to set foot in the attic, and finally visitors were not allowed in the house after dark.